Hi guys, I'm Courtney, and my name is Paige, and this is a student's perspective. Today we're here shooting live from the High Point Market in the Suites at Market Square and in our very own booth. And here we're with Adam Kessler today to talk. And you can introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Adam Kessler. I'm the Education Manager for the AWFS, which is the Association of Woodworking and Furnishing Suppliers. So basically my job is to run a lot of student contests. So I run about 5 different contests a year for student woodworkers and student designers.
So this is like conveniently perfect for what we love to do here, especially with University Hall of Innovation and the Plywood Challenge that we like to run in our very own booth that's actually behind us right now. So this is going to be a good conversation for us today, I think. I'm interested, first off, just about your maybe education and background, and
Sure.
if this was a route that you ever considered yourself getting into.
Yeah, so I originally went to school for architecture for a few semesters. Didn't quite fit in, so then I went for sculpture. And sculpture was cool, but I would build something and then it would just be this kind of cool looking thing, but it didn't really do anything. So I found furniture to be this happy medium between sculpture and architecture, where I could build something, have something, and actually use it, you know, kind of a functional sculpture in a way. So I went for, I got a degree in furniture design and in fibers design as well from Buffalo State University. So,
Fibers design.
yeah, fibers design, yeah.
Could you explain that a little? What is that?
So sure, fibers is weaving. It's doing all different kinds of screen printing and tie-dye, batik, all different kinds of different methods of dyeing or making fabric, yeah.
That's so neat.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you want to start talking about a little bit about the challenges that you run? Like, what kind are they? Are you focused in like furniture or
Sure.
like lighting or what?
Yeah, so the biggest competition I do is called the Freshwood Competition, and basically, so my company has a big show in Las Vegas every 2 years, and we bring 40 students from all around the country, and we give them $300 for travel. We put them up in a hotel. It's totally free to enter. We pay to ship their project to and from Las Vegas. So it's a pretty good deal. I was actually a student in the competition in 2011, and that's how I got involved. And then in 2013, they asked me to kind of help out and just kind of, you know, help with all the students and organizing. And then in 2015, they did the same. And then in 2017, I started running the show. So I've run the show 2 times, the Freshwood Competition.
Very cool.
It's fun. So I basically have to get, you know, 40 students. I'm booking their travel, I'm reimbursing them, I'm, you know, making sure that their projects are getting there intact. We photograph them all. We bring them out to the display area, and then the show's up for 4 days, short 4 days. But that's pretty fun. And I didn't really expect myself, you know, I always wanted to be more of a furniture designer. I actually did work at a furniture factory. It's called Datesweiser Furniture. For 5 years, I was an engineer, I was in new product development, I was an estimator, I was a project manager. So I did the furniture gig for 5 years, and it was fun, but it was very stressful, I guess, you know.
Yeah. And you have to play a lot of different roles.
Yeah, it was a kind of a small company, under 50 people, so, and we were doing, I think, about $20 million in jobs a year at the time, so we got to do some cool ones. I got to do ones for Cadillac, we did the World Trade Center Tower, we did Condé Nast, about 30 floors of furniture for them, so it was a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Big money.
Yeah, big money, $1 million jobs, lots of stress, but, you know, it was fun.
So how do you think that work environment translates to where you are now?
Well, it helps me because I have kind of a perspective of, you know, where a lot of the students in like my competitions are going, you know,
Right.
and so I can give them, you know, kind of advice just to try to get your foot in the door. A lot of times is the hardest part, you know, and I mean, for my job, I was actually working as a pizza guy right out of college, and I spilled some olive oil all over myself during lunch, and I was like, oh, screw this, I'm gonna go apply. I went home, I updated my resume, and I dropped it off in person to the furniture factory, and about a month later, they gave me a call, and I got the job. So.
Oh, good for you. That's incredible. And I'm just, okay, so students. Why students?
I like students because, I mean, that way you have a good chance to affect a lot of people, you know. And so with what I do with the Freshwood contest, it's only like a brief flash in the pan, but I get to meet all these like great furniture designers and stuff, and a lot of our judges are pretty famous. So we had this year we had Wendy Moriyama. She's a teacher at San Diego State who recently retired. And we had Judson Beaumont. He's from Canada, and he's a pretty cool. He does like kind of Disney style furniture and stuff. So I get to meet all these cool guys. Gary Knox Bennett, I got to meet him. Yeah, a bunch of cool guys, and then for the students, I mean, there's 40 students every year that I get to meet and interact with. So who knows where they're gonna go, you know? And a lot of it is just enabling people to have the same experience that I had. You know, when I got into the show, like me and my buddy flew from Buffalo to Las Vegas, and we got to party and see, you know, all these crazy CNC machines and edge banding machines and all this stuff that you don't see in a normal wood shop, you know. So it's cool.
It's very similar to our experience here.
Yeah,
Is what
for sure.
we are trying to do as students as much as possible is get the message out and share as much as we can with everyone else, and maybe pass this torch down to where other people can have the same experience we're having now, even just being at market and different trade shows and opportunities like that.
Yeah. And just to clarify, are you working more with like college students or high school? Is it high
So
school?
Freshwood is both college and high school. It's open to, I think this year we had 188 entries, 42 projects got in. I think 16 or 17 were from high school, and then the rest were all college.
And do they all just like apply online or through
Yeah, you
social
apply
media?
online.
Okay.
It's all entirely online websites, and it's called Art Call.
Okay.
And basically, they submit 5 photos, and then from those 5 photos, we have our judges go through them online, and then whichever ones they like the best, we bring those to the show. So 42 of them we brought this year, and then out of those 42, there's different categories. There's chairs, there's tables, there's case goods, there's a design for production category, there's an open category, and then we have a special theme every year. So there's 6 first place prizes, but then that's times 2 because there's 6 for high school and 6 for post-secondary. So this year I think I gave out like $20,000 in cash to just all different students. So like 15, 20 different students got some cash. So, yeah.
Holy moly. What's your favorite category?
So I was in. I always like the chairs and the tables are the most competitive because we get a ton of entries in those ones. I like doing the special themes too. So this year the special theme was sports and games. So we had like this big, it was like a bar game where you slide the puck with like the salt and stuff, but he made like a big 90-degree angle, and that was in high school, and it was like, I don't know, this like 10 foot by 10 foot big L-shaped thing. It was fun, but the crate was huge to bring into the convention center. But it was a cool thing, and people loved it, and he got that student won the People's Choice Award too. So he got the most votes out of kind of what you guys are doing here with the votes.
What do you think the reaction is to, say, everyone in the industry now seeing the student work? Do they feel inspired, or do you feel it's extremely different than what's going on?
Yeah, a lot of, so at our show it is a lot of like people who own furniture factories and stuff go there to buy machinery.
Right.
And they're always blown away at like the students' work. I mean, some of it is really, really amazing, especially when you look at the high school level. I mean, I didn't really have wood shop in high school. I had it in like middle school for a few years. But then like once they got to high school, like it was like you could do sculpture, you could do some other stuff. But these kids are building like massive, huge armoires and giant tables and stuff. This one guy built an entire dining room table, and it was like glass, and I think it was like cherry wood. And it's like, holy cow, he built that in high school. Like, I didn't even start touching that stuff until my sophomore, junior year of college, to try to build something that big. So
I think that's a very underlooked thing is like secondary education in high school, just because there's so much to preface universities, whether you even go to a tech school where you have some of the facilities, but things like that, or even like we have a problem as a university trying to make ourselves aware to high school students as much as possible, and make them think about the opportunities at different architecture programs and knowing the facilities that we have, because it's hard to make them entirely aware. And thinking back to high school for me, like senior year, junior year, I had no idea of the possibilities or what I was able to gain even from going to college.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And back in high school, you had to pre-register for, wood shop and all that, and I never was able to take that in my schedule. And then going to college, I was exposed to the wood shop, and I was a little nervous because I've never done it before. You kind of think, I'm expected to know it, you know what I mean? But I mean, once you are exposed to it, I think it's such a great eye-opening opportunity, and you don't realize how much you can love it.
Yeah, and it's really cool to build stuff for yourself too. I mean, like in my house, I have my coffee table, for example. it's a coffee table, but then underneath there's a spot for my Chihuahua to go in. You know? And so it was just, you know, out of necessity. I was like, where do I keep my dog? And I don't want one of these just metal crates that you throw in the corner. You know, I was like, I want something that kind of goes with the room a little bit. So I got to design my own table. And I still spent like $1,000 in materials, but, you know, so it still costs as much as a regular table. So I didn't save any money, but you know, I got what I wanted in the end. And I got the, you know, the pride of I made that, you know. So that's always cool.
Really good conversation. I think we've been having, like, personal design. It's something that even just designing for yourself makes you consider things so much more. And if it's for you, you're gonna love it so much more versus designing for someone else.
Yeah, I've actually never designed for somebody else. I'm kind of greedy in that way, I guess. I've designed things for people, but not, you know, I haven't built them for them. So.
But when you're passionate about it, or if it's specific to the needs of a certain scenario, I think it makes it so much more unique.
Yeah.
It's special.
Yeah.
And even just thinking about some of the task items that we have around here with the Plywood Challenge, like I think about one of the desks, like it's retrofitting a specific room or a specific, like, I think task is a good word to say it, because I think about all the supplies that you need on a specific surface or things like that, and it just, I don't know, conforms to you, and it makes it so much more personal.
Yeah.
I think people get excited because they kind of see, okay, maybe that's not something I necessarily thought I needed, but I'm interested to utilize that and bring it into my home, and how can I make that now mine?
Yeah. It's really fun just, you know, coming up with an idea, like, you know, seeing a space, like, oh, I need a table in that corner, you know.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And then just building it yourself.
And custom design is becoming just like a crazy fabricated thing now. And it's like everyone does custom.
Everybody wants custom. Yeah.
And all these manufacturers, like, they can't keep up with it either, because I don't know, it's crazy.
When I worked in the factory, we had, you know, our product line, and if you ordered from the product line, it was 8 weeks to get it. But if you wanted something custom, it was 13 weeks.
12,
but then you're working with, you know, the clients, and you're saying, is this the right piece of glass? Or like we were doing some stone tables, you know, and sometimes they would go to like Italy, pick out the stone, and like ship it to us. It was like that insane. It was like, okay, you guys really knew what you wanted.
And sometimes I think it's important, like you said, time is a big factor in it, but cost is too. So some people get like, oh, I really want that, but then they put the prices together, and it's like, okay, maybe I should take a little step back.
Yeah, custom is always kind of a tricky thing, because people just hear the word custom and they just see dollar signs popping up in their mind. Especially like, so in New York City, they'll basically take a room, they'll take 4 feet off of each wall, and that's the size of the table that they want, you know. And so the table could be 6'7" by 4'5" or something weird like that. And I mean, if you just want like a regular, you know, 5 foot by 4 foot table or whatever, it's one price. But if you just want to change it by a few inches, now we have to redesign a lot of the components and stuff. So it's fun and it's a challenge, but at the same time, it's kind of managing customers' expectations. You know, like how crazy can we get for your budget? You know?
Right. So do you ever get into the design process with any of the students, like getting to discuss the composition of their work or the construction, like, with any of your engineering, like, background?
Yeah, we did it in school a lot. We had critiques and stuff like that. At the Freshwood competition, I mean, these students have already, I mean, the projects are already top-notch, so there's really not a lot to discuss sometimes. Some of them stick out and they're like, okay, that one maybe shouldn't be in the show. But a lot of them are really, really super well done. Some of the schools that enter our contest, so there's like a school in California called Krenov School. There's another one called Furniture Institute of Massachusetts. There's some of these like smaller design schools that really just spend like 9 months building like one piece of furniture. And so and it's like perfect. You know, when you look at it, you look at it with a magnifying glass, all the joints are like, it's like, man, I don't even think I could do that. So yeah, it's really impressive. But in terms of design and stuff, we don't really give them too much advice at that point, because they're already kind of past that point. So another competition that I am involved in is called Skills USA. So I run Skills USA competitions for the state of California. So that's 4 competitions a year. And so I run introductory woodworking, which is just a small project, which is like a 3-hour competition. They have to build it right there on the spot. And so that one's pretty fun, with you know, a room full of high schoolers building stuff. And then the cabinet making competition, they have 3 hours to build a small cabinet. And so there's regional competitions, and then if they do well there, they go on to the state competitions, which is an 8-hour competition. And if they do well there, they go on to national competitions, which is currently in Louisville. and that's like a 12-hour competition. And then if they do well there, then they go to the international competition, which last year it was in Kazan, Russia. And so we actually sent, there was a young guy from, I think, Wyoming, went out to there and represented the U.S. as the cabinet maker, as like the furniture maker.
And who would that be in collaboration with?
So that's Skills USA, it's called. Yeah, so Skills is like the international.
Okay.
It's Skills World or World Skills, I believe. And then there's Skills USA, and then there's every state has its own skills.
Got it.
And so it's basically, students come and they get a set of plans. So I draft all the plans, I do all the designing, I get all the materials donated, and I run all these contests. So it's pretty fun, yeah. I do a lot of contests.
Yeah. And so what's your opinion on coming to trade shows and stuff like that? What do you look for, or are you student-oriented in that sense? Because there's not as many of us here as we wish there to be. But...
Yeah, I wish I was more at High Point, especially. So this is my 4th year coming to market, and I always come during the fall markets. And I'd like to see more student stuff. I mean, I saw this area, and I had to like find this area 2 years ago. I was like asking at the front desk, I was like, "Where's the student area?" They're like, "We don't know." And I was like, "Okay, I'll just find it," you know. And so I was like a little disappointed that there wasn't more, of a push for students. So I know there's this, and then I know there's the Pinnacle Awards, opened a small section for students. But other than that, I think High Point could use more student-oriented activities. But
gotta be proactive.
there's so much going on here, though. And I mean,
Is.
There's, if you just walk through any of the buildings, there's just miles and miles of furniture, and I just love just taking pictures and just trying to soak it all in and seeing, what's the new cool thing that's going on, or I'm always trying to find something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Is always my goal.
Yeah.
And I think more students should be exposed to it because, it does give you a good sense of the size and the scale of the industry. Because otherwise you're just, it's furniture, you go and you buy it and you take it home, You see it like this, it's a little different.
Yeah, I feel like it's like something so deep and close to us, right? Because like space planning, etc. Anything we do, but furnishing kind of does get to the end process of our design, at least in interior architecture. Maybe when orienting space, but this I think inspires the way that we can use it to influence the actual space planning and things like that, instead of just considering maybe texture and color and pattern. Just the technicalities of aesthetic. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know. And in terms of because I worked in office furniture, and they were coming out with like the new open plans and the mobile work people, people who are
everyone sells now.
Yeah, now everyone wants it. But before then, it was just all cubicles. People just wanted cubicles, and it was just a grid pattern. How many seats can I fit into this room? Now it's how can they collaborate? It's more, emotional and thought out, in the workflow and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really funny because I was thinking about that, even thinking about the workstation over there and things like that. But it's like hiding your personal objects too, because that's why like armoires and things like that, anything to conceal what was happening in the workplace or things like that, you're putting it behind closed doors. But now everyone is revealing those things, or at least finding a purpose and a place for everything specifically.
Yeah.
But that's always what I say. But corporate isn't as crazy here. But I don't know.
So I just have a question about materials, and have you ever considered using start incorporating other materials such as metals into your challenges, or why just wood? Do you think it using one material kind of makes the kids think more differently about how to use that material, or do you think it's kind of just more cohesive, just keep everybody kind of together?
So wood is kind of the standard for furniture.
Okay.
It's, there's a lot of machines to use. When you get into metal fabrication, you need more complex machines and stuff. I actually, in my when I went to college, though, I took a welding class that was through the sculpture department, and I used that in my furniture, and I built a chair, that I welded together, and then in fabric class, I used fabric and stretched it. So that project I didn't use any wood at all.
Yeah.
And recently I just got a 3D printer, and so it can do 18 by 18 by 17, and I want to start making furniture-y components and stuff like that using plastic. So I'm definitely open to any materials and stuff like that. I think wood is a great place to start though, because it's durable, it's fairly cheap, it's readily available, and you can just cut it with a saw and stuff. You don't need crazy, you can use a CNC machine, but you don't need to have all this super expensive machinery to do it. You can just have maybe 5 or 6 tools or machines and build something. And that's what a lot of schools teach, you know. I mean, when my program was also called wood/furniture design. So like the wood was integrated right into it. And so like in our Freshwood contest, I think the requirement is 50% wood on everything, except for the open category. The open category can be, I think we had a plastic chair one time, and we've had not too many metal things, but just other, you know, plastic materials and like acrylics and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely, you know, a use for it. I just think wood is, like I said, it's just really easy to use, and especially when you're starting out, it's durable enough where you can build something out of it and not have to, you know, sit there and weld and burn yourself and do all that. Not that that's bad, but you know, it's just more challenging, I think. Yeah.
I think that's what sets our booth apart, or why it's maybe looked at differently, just because you're looking at textiles all day, maybe the comfort factor of some of the residential furniture that you're seeing everywhere, but you're able to think about the composition and then the actual construction when it comes to looking at it in wood.
Right. I think there's a lot of opportunity for, especially like adding colors with stains and the way that you like manipulate it, you can bend it and do really fun things with it, even just like by warping it or gluing it up or like cutting into it. Yeah, so I think it really is an awesome material to use, and that not a lot of people realize how much can come out of it.
Yeah.
So.
I just see such a high contrast now when I look at the color and the plywood, like from so funny. And even just seeing like the actual process of the burned wood too, I think that makes people think a little bit more about. Someone had to consider the line work that was going into the
lasers,
process. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just more forms of digital fabrication, but it all applies. It all applies.
Yeah, I mean, I took a CNC class just for fun at a community college in California, and I built a little set of stairs for my cat and dog to get up on the bed. And well, it's easy to build stuff for cats and dogs because it's just small, you know. But it's just a smaller scale, you know. But and then I built a cat house too, which is pretty fun, and it's actually just 2 pieces. It just kind of goes together like that. And so like my whole concept was I just wanted to make something like as easy as possible. So it takes about it's like an hour and 45 minutes to cut everything out, and it's got some kerf cuts so it all bends together, and then it just snaps together with no glue. And people were like, oh, you could sell those. So I actually want to start making those and doing just like a small side job, just making cat houses.
That's so neat. But that's the beauty of it, and understanding how it fits together and being able to just totally distract the fact of glue and adhesives and things like that, because that's part of joinery is so important to what we design, I think. And I don't know, the construction is just crucial, I think, and something that's, especially in the flat pack challenge, to where those pieces don't have to be rearranged and they're going to fit together exactly where they fit together. And something that, I don't know, slips together is going to be so much more thoughtful and considered.
I think you have to think a lot more about it than, oh, I'll just shoot a nail in it. You know, now if you're making a joint of some kind, you know, you got to think.
That's what makes it so like special and like beautiful. It's really nice to see like having like maybe a chair that's very like really carved in or crafted versus like something that's just like simple, but it has like those special moments in them that just really make it stand out. Yeah. So.
And a lot of the argument is that you can't be as creative with like a CNC machine, but I disagree with that. I think it's all about your design and what you'd use. I mean, it's the same thing as a table saw. It's just a little bit more intelligent, you know, and can make curves and stuff. But I mean, as long as you can use the machine, you can still be as artistic and, you know, and then you can always go in and add some hand details if you want to say, oh, I want to round this over. You can, you know, go in and just kind of hand manipulate it after. But there's a big argument right now of, you know, for the San Diego Woodworkers Fair, they were like, no CNC design. I was like, well, why not? You know, like I got something that I made in CNC. It's pretty cool. You know?
Now, how do you start that process for CNC design? Do you 3D model anything, or do you sketch? Or do you...
I'm actually a little strange. I go right to CAD. I don't sketch anything, and I've always been doing that. I wouldn't recommend it per se. It's very important to know your hand skills. It's just the method that I use. And then I'm kind of lazy, so when I'm building something, I don't even do the drawings, except for the student contest, I'll do the dimension drawings. Right. But I'll just build a model, and then I'll just pull dimensions right off the model as I'm building, and I have my laptop in the workshop with me. Right. And I just kind of say, okay, this needs to be that big, and I'll make that piece, and then I'll just it just saves me time. I don't
Yeah,
know
it does.
if in a factory it might not work the best, just because you're trying to communicate with other people. But if I'm building something from design to finish, and it's just me that needs to understand it, I just skip a lot of steps.
Okay. It makes sense, 'cause then you still understand the construction process and exactly how meticulously the pieces are fit together.
Right.
3D modeling helps so much in the fact of understanding something.
I almost need 3D modeling, and then I also need to put it into the perspective mode, and I really rotate it around. I think the hardest thing when you're drawing in CAD is getting a sense of scale, because you have no sense of scale when it's just floating on your computer screen. So I'm always constantly taking a tape measure when I'm designing, and I'll have a tape measure. So say I'm building something to fit on my lap, I'll actually measure my lap, and I'll make it, that'll be the dimension that I use. Or in my coffee table, for instance, I measured my couch, and I took 2 inches off because I didn't want my legs to be up when I put my feet on the coffee table. So I'm always sitting there with a tape measure and a computer and just 3D modeling. That's my design process.
That sounds ideal, though. Human scale is so important, and I think
You got to base it off something. And so most of my stuff is based off of me. Whenever I design, I'm like, okay, this turn needs to be this big.
I feel like we've run into a lot of problems where constraints of like the translation of size does kind of get lost. I've seen a lot of times when people go full scale and it is a little bit shorter than they expected it to be, but that also leaves room for either a happy mistake or improvement.
Yeah, or a change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there ever a point where you have like an intent in the beginning, but then kind of physically are working with the materials and everything, but then you kind of change your mindset on like, okay, I have to go back and make some decisions.
Yeah, you
or...
always run into some things. You'll cut something wrong, and like, oh, now I got to change it, or
backwards.
yeah, or you do something backward. I have actually a table where one of the things is upside down on it, and I just don't tell anybody. I'm like, no,
it was supposed to be like that.
Yeah. So I mean, mistakes happen, obviously, and you can draft and you can have a perfect set of plans, but then you got to build it, and something doesn't line up right or something doesn't fix, and you're always going to have to change on the fly. I don't think unless you're just using a CNC machine and running the same exact program, then it's going to turn out perfect. But if you're hand building it and making the parts yourself, there's always going to be some quirks that you have to work around. Yeah. No one's perfect. So.
So, just like thinking about past, present, future, and then where you are now in your company, how do you feel things have changed, or what do you see for the future of this program and shows?
Yeah, I mean, I love my job. Like I said, it's a lot less stressful than when I was a project manager, which is nice. I don't need to drink coffee anymore.
Yeah. It took you a while. Wow.
But and I don't need to eat as many Tums. But no, I really like working, with students. I'm constantly going to different student fairs and stuff like that, job fairs, career fairs. Every week I'm getting invited to another one in the Los Angeles area, and it's really great. Just talking to the students and getting them excited, and telling them, hey, you don't need to maybe go to this $20,000 school. You can either train with somebody, or you can go to this $5,000 school and get the same kind of education that you would at that other school.
I think that's incredible because I really, personally, I love working with my hands, building and all that stuff. And obviously you advocate largely for, that as well. But is there any way that you see that you do need that, like the whole theory and everything behind that? Because with us, they're always kind of throwing both of it at us. So sometimes one kind of outweighs the other.
So the school that I went to, they're very strong. It was Cerritos College. They're very strong in like the technical skills of like how to cut the mortise and tenons and stuff like that. But where they lack would be the design aspect of it. And so I think Buffalo State is kind of like your school, where it's more design focused, and then you try to build it if you can, and you try to get as close as you can. Whereas like other schools, it's more focused on you have to be able to build something, and then we'll worry about design. And I don't really like that method. I really like focusing on the design because I think it's more intimate almost. You really have to put yourself and imagine, if I was using this piece of furniture or whatever I'm designing, how would I interact with it? And I think just having a good, solid, design, form and function. Do you like form or do you like function? and which way do you want to go with it. I mean, I've done sculptural stuff, and then I've done purely, utilitarian stuff, and you have to. It's a balance. It's all a balancing act between cost, between your design, between what you're trying to do with it. If you want it to be something special, or if you just want it to be something that holds up, a shoe rack or something like that. Something that you just need. I just need a shoe rack. So
I think that's really interesting too, because sometimes, like you said, designing that, like just the overall process of it and overlooking everything at once, you kind of conceptually get lost. And I think while you think about like human scale and all that stuff, how you said it's more intimate, it makes you realize like, okay, it does have that purpose. I can see what exactly it's going to do, rather than is it really going to be utilized? Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't love your own project and you wouldn't use it yourself, then is it really?
That's one of my hard things. If I'm not in love with what I'm making, I'm gonna lose interest, and I think that's probably part of the reason why I haven't built things for other people. It's because I'm like, that's cool, but you can go build it.
But they emphasize that a lot in school as well. Like, they don't want us to maybe be too accustomed to what the professors are telling us. We take guidance and we take criticism very well. But you should be designing what you want to design, but only like conceptual backing. Everything should be based off of what you feel is going to best lead your project in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's what's missing from these like technical schools where they're focused on building, is they don't do critiques. I think critiques are very important, especially just being honest, not really taking things to heart, Sure, you designed it, but it may not be perfect, and you need other people to tell you what's wrong with it a lot of times, because in your mind, this might be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but someone else is like, oh, look at that thing. It's just, I've seen that 50 times before, it's nothing new. So it's important to get other people's feedback, because, I mean, if you're just building your own stuff in this vacuum, sure, everything I build is great. Well, it might not be. And you have to, it's hard when being told, or your idea is not that great, but sometimes it's not.
Sometimes you need to hear it.
Sometimes you do need to hear it, and you need to get back down to the reality.
It's kind of like a reset, like just cleaning your mind and your design process.
I've never heard of a school without critiques. Now I'm interested.
We're so used to it.
Yeah, it's more of the ones that are focused on just building. So these are like people who might not want to be designing their own furniture, but they want to be working in a furniture factory. So operating like a CNC machine or doing assembly, assembling stuff like that.
So more critical specifications.
Yeah, more craftsperson, craftsperson-y. So there's like kind of craftsperson-y schools, then there's kind of like the hardcore intensive furniture schools where you'll learn how to do a Windsor style chair, or you'll learn how to do a specific cabinet,
Right.
And then you have the schools that are more designy, which are more, free flowing, but maybe the end product isn't as finished of a product. It might still be a little rough, but if you had a craftsperson do it, then maybe it would be perfect. So,
Right.
So I like all three, but I would like to do all three. But,
we aim to kind of grasp on all those aspects at our school, which is really nice. Like even getting into lighting, design, both like physically manufacturing things, and then within conceptual concepts that go into the interiors. So whether it's not something we actually produce, it can still be some work that we design.
Yeah, I think the job of the designer is really to kind of push the limits and see what they can do, and then the job of the craftspeople is to bring the designer back down to reality, because sometimes you'll get these like designs, like when I was at the Datesweiser, we would get these designs of like, a 12-foot table with 2 legs, and we'd be like, okay, there's only 2 legs on it, it's gonna be a happy table in the end, And so a lot of times we would have to like kind of reel the designers back in, but I think that's good, because without somebody pushing the boundaries, then you're just going to end up with the same boring stuff day in and day out.
And that's the reality of working with either clients or actual people in the trade, and getting different perspectives from people. But pulling something back in.
And clients can be a handful too. I actually like doing when it's a company, it's a little bit better than when it's an individual, because when you're designing for an individual person, they're really emotionally invested in it. And if it's with the company, it's not really their money, and they just need a table or something like that.
Right.
So they're a little less picky a lot of times when you're working with a corporation is ordering a table versus an individual person. It's just a lot different of a dynamic.
Well, that's why we work with students now.
Yeah, that's why I work with students, because the students aren't, they're not buying anything from me, so it's all good.
Sky's the limit. We do like the $1 million projects in high school.
Yeah, you can design crazy stuff that's impossible to build. But I mean, it's good to dream, and maybe eventually the technology will catch up with your concept. With like 3D printing, for example. They're 3D printing all kinds of crazy stuff now, and so you can design something super intricate where before it would have to be some kind of like hand carved method. Now you can just hit print and walk away, and you're done. So.
Yeah, this is true. The facilities at our school have definitely gotten us all very inspired by their capabilities and seeing what they can do. And even as freshman year, everything is so hands-on, and they do their best. We're not actually allowed to use, like, say, the laser cutters freshman year, which is a good way to actually get us in depth with what we're doing and actually considering every movement that we're making and decision in the process. But then by second and third year, then you're just considering, what can the laser cutter do for me? And then by the time you're into, like, maybe more craft classes that you can actually 3D fabricate something with a 3D printer. Now we have 4 of those printers that we could line up and use. So it gets you thinking about the process and the actual strengths that each machine has too, because you can use them all to your abilities.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm designing, I'll design based on either the material or the machine that I'm planning to use. Like for these, for example, you probably wouldn't build these out of 2x4s or like regular dimensional lumber. You would only build this stuff out of plywood. So you have to change your thinking to say, how would I do that? Using the tools at my disposal. I think the more tools you have, the crazier you can get, honestly. Which is fun.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if you were to replicate the same exact model in both 3 different materials, and like whether it were to be laser cut repetition of layers and then actually 3D printed, they come across way different.
Yeah, they'll all be different. Yeah, and I also like kind of mixing things. I've seen one of the cool things now is they're 3D printing like joints, and they're just kind of slipping like wood into it. So it's like, okay, so the joint is obviously the hardest part of the furniture where all the wood comes together. So if you can just print that part, then you can make a table in a couple hours.
Yeah, so it was with some furniture, I'm trying to remember who, but they had actually 3D fabricated, they had miniature 3D models of all their banquettes and things like that were just sorting together. And it really didn't give you much of the actual like creation or how it was built or constructed whatsoever, but it still gave you an idea of the concept. And people were like, wow, that's the most amazing thing. When all the textiles are out, the full scale furniture is right there. But everyone's looking at the miniature 3D fabricated
there's something
model.
about, and some people when you're selling things, you can make beautiful renderings and stuff, and like sometimes people need the renderings to even imagine it. They just can't. They look at lines and just a regular plan drawing, and they're like, okay, it's a bunch of lines. But when you get a 3D model or something, that really helps you sell it to a client, because people can see, oh, okay, that's what that looks like, and that's how that. Say something opens, that's how it opens, So I think it's going to get more important in the future too, just making little models and stuff for clients.
Absolutely. So yeah, because especially for us, we're in it, we're exposed to that all the time, like seeing. I mean, like you said, turning in perspective. Sometimes we don't need to because we're just like, oh, I can kind of see that. But like if I told my parents, for example, they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I need to physically see it and all that stuff. So. And
I guess some people can't imagine things in their head. They just don't have the ability. Like
concept.
I can build something in my head and rotate it. Some people just can't, And so that's who you're designing for a lot of times. Absolutely. And so you need, the more information you can give them, the better, the better they'll design what they're buying and pay more money. So.
What are some of the presentations like? Do they have any boards that get submitted to these competitions? That's what I'm curious about. Like,
so
saying renderings or things like that.
So for the freshman competition, it's kind of like this, where everyone has to hand in a poster. The high school ones we don't expect as much. The college ones we expect a little bit more, and mostly it's for the judges when the judges are going along to kind of read a little bit beyond just the face value of the piece itself, and. I think it's important, though, to be able to market yourself and to be able to put a good presentation together, because I think that's actually won or lost, like, first or second place a couple of times is just the poster, because without explaining your concepts, people might not get it right off the bat, Say you're making a chair that helps you stand, You just sit in the chair and you don't read anything about it. You never know that there's this lever that helps you stand up, until you read the poster. So I think a lot of times marketing is almost as important as the design of the piece itself, how you market it and how you get your name out there. And and how you present your own piece of work. Do you care enough to spend a lot of time on your poster? That kind of tells you something about how much that person's involved or into their project. So I think it's very important. Yeah.
I know with our school, craft is extremely important, and I think that's universal, obviously. Do you have any advice on how to be a better craftsman, or are there techniques that you always follow by? Or
so I'm kind of a collector, I guess, to speak of like different techniques. I want to learn every technique ever. So I know welding, I know weaving, I know shibari, I've even invented kind of this Nuno felting kind of technique. Nuno felting is where you take felt and silk and you agitate them and it sticks together. And I kind of made this like patchwork quilt thing. So I'm always kind of like pushing the envelope, and I love material. Like material science is like one of the things that I like geek out on. It's like, oh, what's the properties of that plastic? It's like, yay! But at the same time, it's fun. And it's good to just know how to just so many different things. Like you take like acrylic and stuff. There's like special glues to glue acrylic together. And when you're welding, you need to know your torch and all these like different the thickness of the metal that you have. Or if you're doing if you're doing plastics, you need to know the melting point of that piece of plastic because it's going up against something hot, maybe a radiator. So I just love learning. I would say my suggestion is learn as many techniques and as many as you can, because eventually it's going to come back and you're going to be like, hey, I could use a woven part for that chair, and it helps you understand and it helps you be able to do more with your own ideas and really just expand and make something new. Like that's what really drives me, is I want to make something new. I don't want to make something and say, oh, that reminds me of this. No, I want to start over. I want something that reminds you of nothing that you've seen. So, and I think knowing a lot of materials helps you just be able to go crazy. Basically.
That's very true. We do definitely have that exposure in school, I'd say, or at least the professors push for that as much as possible. Whether that be with plaster, concrete, and even cardboard. We do a lot of cardboard competitions, actually, whether it be in lighting design, things like that. Acrylic, which always is a mess. So I'm curious about the perfections of that. It was just I'm doing a project with wax right now, and I'm actually in the class called Hybrid Craft, and where we're using different replications of materials. So I'm trying to replicate cloth, but doing that with wax form. Just thinking about that process, how they have literally no physical similarities, but you can make them have that through just iteration and process, and it's the worst process, but it's really fun to see how I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah, and you also learn what you like and what you don't. I built a chair out of fiberglass. I don't think I'll ever do that again. It's not fun material. It sticks to you. So I mean, you get to learn something, but there might be ones that you don't like too. So.
It makes sense. That's all part of being a designer.
Yeah, you got to find out what you like, and you got to get that fiberglass in your skin, and
down and dirty, I guess.
So kind of looking at from the process of design, where you have maybe like a sketch, then you build it, and it's over. Do you find yourself that you ever want to kind of join the iterative process and say kind of, okay, I from this I want to do something different, but I kind of want to do the same thing, so we kind of make a series of them?
I'll like kind of go in like a line. So like when I built the coffee table for my dog, I also built like another table that kind of goes with it, and then I also built a picture frame for the cat again. But all three of those things kind of go together. So I'll kind of run in like kind of groups, and I'll kind of make like a room, so to speak. But then I'll go off and I'll design something crazy that looks like it's melting or something like that. So it really depends on my mood, I guess, and like it's almost like how like painters go through periods, like that. I'll go through like periods. So like when I started, I was doing all sculptural furniture. I was interested in nothing but sculptural, and now I'm getting more into like green and craftsman style furniture and stuff like that. And like before, I wasn't even interested in mortise and tenons. I was like, mortise and tenons, old news, and now I'm like, okay, I'll try it. So it depends, and as time goes on, your interests change, and maybe you'll go visit somewhere and be influenced by something, be like, oh, I want to do that, And like I said, I recently got a 3D printer, so I want to do more like Rococo, like really intricate, detailed stuff to the nth degree, just because I can. Whereas before it was hard to do that. Now it's easy to do it. So Yeah, so I see myself always evolving and changing, and I never want to get stuck in one niche, you know.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by people who have that one niche, but I can't ever imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a girl from school, and you know, she sews leaves, and they're beautiful, but she's been doing that now for 10 years, and I'm like, I would have gone crazy by now. You know, I just can't do the same thing. I just every piece of furniture that I've made looks different. I think no two things are really. I mean, there might be some similarities, but for the most part, it's all just. It looks like it was made by 10 different people almost. So.
And that's the exciting part about it. You know, you never really know what you're gonna make.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
It also shows the craft behind it too, and it's not something that's being mass produced or
Right.
something behind a factory.
Yeah.
It's behind a person, it's one person.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking, is there anything that you've seen being at High Point so far that's inspired you to just take off on something new? Have you seen that unique thing yet?
I've seen a couple of years ago. I saw this really cool couch. I think it was the Zuo Modern couch, and it was purple, and it was kind of like shimmery, and it was like the curves of it was just really interesting. I was like, man, that's a cool couch, and so I was inspired by that. I've seen some classic designs here that, you know, it's just kind of cool to see, like, there was like the Nana Dietzel chair, the hanging egg chair, and like, I've seen them in like, you know, in, like, books and stuff.
They
and so
keep popping up though.
Yeah, and I was like, it's cool to see like the old designery stuff here too, you know, and you'll find some like remakes of stuff. There was one, I think it's in this building, they had like these like skull chairs that were downstairs. It was like the pole art, I think it
so
was.
interesting to look at, yeah.
Yeah, there was like some of those. There was another one last year where it was all these like sticks, and you sat on it, and there was like a piece of foam underneath it, and it was so like I love just, you know, exploring and trying to see the new stuff. So yeah, I still can get inspired by every year I come here. I can get inspired. So
Well, that's the reason we keep coming back. So.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of A Student's Perspective.